In 300 BC, Zeno, a very rich trader, lived in the city of Cyprus. His boat and all of his belongings perished during a journey from Phoenicia to Piraeus. Due to that one incident, which was completely beyond Zeno's or anybody else's control, in a moment, this extremely affluent man fell into poverty. Consider yourself Zeno. How would you respond if nature's overwhelming might were to wash away all of your hard work? What is the appropriate response? You would be upset? Sad? Do you think you've been let down by life? All of these responses would be typical for most people, but not for Zeno, the founder of Stoicism. One minor adjustment lasts a lifetime, and a minor shift in perspective might lead to more significant and lasting changes in the future. The fundamental concept of acceptance and apathy lies at the heart of Stoicism. Zeno developed and taught Stoicism after studying the writings of Socrates and other notable thinkers. Zeno contends that while we have little control over our circumstances, we do have power over how they impact us, and we must make the most of this power. Instead than lamenting over things that had already been lost, or in this case, drowned commodities, Zeno concentrated on keeping his cool under pressure and staying impartial despite his situation. People today mistakenly believe that Stoics are unbreakable and that they don't frequently experience intense emotions like angry outbursts or anxious episodes. Stoicism's basic concept, however, went well beyond that. Stoicism was a way of seeing, characterizing, and comprehending the universe rather than merely a technique of characterizing emotionally detached people. It was a way of life, and cultures have continued to live that way for millennia. The advantages of Stoic philosophy are equally significant today as they were thousands of years ago, and they can be applied to situations in the same way. Stoicism enables us to transform these bad feelings from unpleasant experiences into ideas that offer us a distinct viewpoint on the world. Every person on the planet has unique experiences which lead to a variety of viewpoints on many topics. The overall philosophy of the Stoics was well known since they met, debated, and taught philosophy in a public setting. They felt that everyone might profit enormously from Stoic ideas. Thus, it didn't make sense for them to keep that information hidden behind the walls of a palace courtyard or a school. Everyone might thus learn to become a Stoic, and they did from slaves to emperors. Among the most famous Stoics in history are Seneca, a famous statesman, Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and one of the most powerful men in history, and Epictetus, which means acquired because he was formerly owned as a slave. By abstaining from all types of segregation and spearheading the struggle against inequity, the early Stoics lived out what they taught. The term cosmopolitan, which literally translates to citizen of the world, was even coined by them. Because of their diversity, cities like New York, Toronto, Dubai, and London come to mind when people hear that phrase nowadays. The Stoics advocated for this kind of solidarity and cooperation. Women were not permitted to study philosophy at the time of the founding of Stoicism, but Stoics vehemently objected. It is not just men who possess eagerness and a natural inclination towards virtue, but women as well, stated Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's tutor. Women appreciate good and righteous activities just as much as men do, and they disapprove of the contrary. Given this, why is it okay for males to consider and investigate ways to live well, that is, to engage in philosophical practice, while women are not allowed to do the same? Women were permitted to study Stoicism and become Stoics themselves, even at a period when it was unpopular. Why, therefore, do so many people choose to live a Stoic lifestyle? Our emotions have a tendency to interfere with things in a world full of unexpected turns. In actuality, we become depressed when unanticipated negative things happen to us rather than when awful things happen to us. Rainfall is beneficial. It maintains the climate cool and humid, helps us irrigate our plants, and supplies water for our animals. However, it's never a pleasant experience when that ominous cloud drags you outside without an umbrella. So why don't we burst into tears as soon as the rain begins? It's because, despite the dire circumstances, we've come to anticipate rain. We have no control over the weather, so even though it's awful, the rain eventually stops and the light comes back. According to Stoicism, we should also anticipate that all negative outcomes are inevitable. Imagine the worst-case scenario and accept that it is possible. Voluntary discomfort is one of the Stoic exercises that aims to increase feelings of gratitude. For example, sleeping on your kitchen floor, taking cold showers instead of hot ones, going a few days without eating anything except potatoes, and so forth. This exercise teaches you that if you have the correct mindset, you can survive and even thrive no matter how difficult things get. We indirectly train our minds for future calamities by being able to tolerate these difficult circumstances. This message is more crucial than ever in the modern world, where we are continuously bombarded with commercials telling us that we will never be content if we don't have the newest and greatest thing, look a certain way, or earn a certain amount of money. We come into the world knowing very little. At home, in school, and via personal observation, we learn things as we grow older. The problem is that we frequently learn from all three of these knowledge sources in different ways. Is it necessary for us to absorb all of this information? If we do, we might unintentionally be establishing unattainable goals for our lives, which would ultimately leave us feeling let down and dissatisfied. Life is not like that. Instead, we ought to concentrate on bettering ourselves for our own sake. We ought to act solely and exclusively for our own benefit. Disappointment is nearly usually the result of tying any secondary attachments or external hopes to our activities. We frequently find ourselves attempting to fill that void with material possessions, spending all of your money on a home, a nice automobile, or even a family. We occasionally do all of these activities for their perceived external worth rather than their intrinsic worth. However, according to Stoicism, if you live your life in this manner, you entrust your happiness to uncontrollable outside forces. Natural disasters destroy entire cities, cars nearly always break down, and the number of divorces rises annually. However, even the things that are free in life have a price: the mental and physical costs of space. Learning to live with less will create space in your life for the things that truly matter to you, Seneca once wrote. Rather, we must base our happiness on our inherent worth as people rather than anything we own or can obtain materially. Regardless of what life throws at us, we must decide to try our hardest to maintain our composure. Because ultimately, we have no control over most of the things that happen to us, regardless of what we desire, but we do have complete power over how we respond to those events. The most crucial idea in Stoic philosophy is the duality of control. The chief task in life is simply this, according to Epictetus, so that I can clearly say to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. We must learn to distinguish between the things we can control and the things we cannot, according to Stoic philosophy. We must assess our worth based on the things we can manage rather than the things we cannot. It is admirable to strive for goals, but from a Stoic perspective, it is pointless to lose your cool when things don't work out. Although it's much simpler than becoming a Roman emperor, creating YouTube videos may still be difficult at times. Forming your idea is the first step, which takes ages. After that, you have to research it, decide it's terrible, start over, write the script, record the video, edit it, create the thumbnail, title, and everything else before you hit upload. You're in charge of everything up until the moment you click upload. The YouTube algorithm takes over, though, as soon as you press the upload button. However, many people use indicators that are mostly out of your control, such as the number of views, subscribers, or followers, to determine how successful their YouTube channel or Instagram account is. According to Stoic philosophy, you should evaluate the effectiveness of your work by the amount of effort you put forth, rather than by the results of your outward aspirations. Have faith in the process. Living on less entails releasing yourself from the social constraints that you have essentially placed yourself in. Consider someone who has spent the last 6 months putting forth a lot of effort in their job. He approaches his employer with his performance review because he believes he should be promoted. He walks home believing he must be a lousy employee when the manager compliments him but denies him a promotion. He fails to take into account the possibility that the boss might have just woken up in a rage, that someone else might have been more qualified at the time, or that the business was just losing money and couldn't afford it. He's still upset, but he doesn't know why. He could have been considerably happier overall if he had just valued the caliber of the performance report he submitted and continued to work toward the promotion he desired. His objective would have been delayed rather than lessened with the correct viewpoint. The important thing is to reframe your thinking. A true Stoic finds solace in the knowledge that they can live a comfortable life without all the luxuries that money can purchase, rather than measuring their success by the amount of money they make from their endeavors. The four primary tenets of Stoicism are justice, temperance, courage, and wisdom. Wisdom is the capacity to distinguish between internal and external factors and the freedom to decide how we will respond to events that occur in our lives. According to Viktor Frankl, there is a space between stimulus and response. We have the ability to select our reaction in that area. Persist and resist are two terms that describe courage. What I just did there was practice temperance, or moderation, by speaking more with fewer words and doing more with less. According to Stoics, the ultimate measure of wealth should be having what is necessary, followed by having what is sufficient, even though Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are at odds at the top of Forbes' list. Of all the virtues, justice is the most crucial. It teaches that since we were all created to be kind to one another and not to ourselves, no one should hurt another. Among the most well-known African leaders worldwide was Nelson Mandela. In his struggle against apartheid, he was given a life sentence, which he served for 27 years before being allowed to leave. Since he was elected president of South Africa after being released from prison, many people believed he would ruthlessly punish everyone connected to apartheid or his incarceration. Of course, he didn't. Mandela studied Marcus Aurelius' writings while incarcerated and picked up many of the fundamental principles of Stoicism, which he carried with him throughout his life. Nelson Mandela encouraged his followers to pursue the opposing goal rather than demanding the heads of the wrongdoers, to unwind and recuperate. He emphasized that they could no longer control the past and that their only option was to figure out how to go forward and create a better country. The Stoics follow this path. Stoicism is the foundation of modern medical practices like logotherapy and rational emotive behavioral therapy. REBT assists patients in recognizing harmful thinking patterns that may be contributing to behavioral and emotional problems. It enables you to use logic to refute the logic underlying all of these bad ideas. And once you see that many of them are baseless, you may swap them out with more constructive and healthful ideas. The Stoic idea that people are motivated by purpose, however, is the foundation of logotherapy. By merely discovering that purpose, we may bring happiness and meaning into our lives, even in the most dire circumstances. However, this is easier said than done, as many of us are aware. Like everything else, there is a process involved. Our brains need to be rewired. Get rid of the old and bring in the new. We need to exercise self-worth if we want to solve our happiness issues. We can live a lot better and more satisfying life overall by shifting our concept of worth to the things we can control and without being obsessed with the ones we cannot. We can navigate through the storms of the past and present into more tranquil and placid waters by practicing Stoicism. We can find comfort in the knowledge that we led a fulfilling life, even if it wasn't as long as we had anticipated, even if our ship sinks and we all perish. Because everything has an end. Don't forget that.